Yeah. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. 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 Listen 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 to the Wild Die Podcast.
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 117. My name is Riddick Lamover, aka No Sleeves McGee, and here are my co-hosts, Morning Flower Gary McCallum and Carl Raspy Kiesler.
Say hi, Carl.
What up, guys? Hi, Carl.
I was going to say it's lucky number 7, but apparently not so.
How's those levels?
You sound like you've been smoking Lucky 7s.
Yeah.
Luckies, is that what they were called back in the day? There was a cigarette brand that had something to do with being lucky, wasn't there?
Lucky Strike.
Lucky Strikes.
Yeah. Carl's 4 packs into his day already.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's what is it, 9:15?
Yeah. Got a little sinus infection going on, but I'm here.
Yeah, it'd be perfect for a Clint Eastwood cosplay there.
Yeah.
Are you ready,
Awesome.
Carl? Do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. You got nothing? You got no Clint?
All right, yeah, today, so recently on social media there was that big craze that someone started it out, and I kind of doused some fuel into the fire a little bit, but about people wanting to savage their favorite IP, whatever it is. Hey, does someone have this savage, I don't know, Willy Wonka or whatever? So everybody was tossing in one, and it drove people crazy. And so I decided, why not do that here? Of course, people are looking for something already made, but I think it's really easy to do it with Savage Rules. And so basically we're going to show, 3 different ways of doing it. I'll be starting today, and then we'll see about maybe Carl and Gary, because we've already done it on this show years ago when Harrison and Manuel were co-hosts, and we had done some one-sheet settings. So we had Castlevania, Knight Rider, Kitchen Nightmares, and Gary did the what's the name?
What are you asking me for? Like I'm going to remember. What day is it today?
Well, Starsky and Hutch. Yeah, Gary did Starsky and Hutch. So we're not going to release anything. We're just basically going to talk about our thought process behind that. And we'll start with the Riddick universe, one of my favorite IPs out there. So let's take it to the edge and do this. So Riddick, I know you guys watched, some of the movies recently. Even I think Carl watched all 4 of them. Well, there's 4.
Well, 3 of them. I watched the 3. I didn't watch the
there's live action ones. You've got the first one, Pitch Black. Then there's like a cartoon one called Dark Fury that bridges. It's the bridge between the first 2 movies. The next one is Chronicles of Riddick, and then the last one just called Riddick. There's also some video games. Well, at least one that I know of, Escape from Butcher Bay, I believe. And then there's probably some comics too, but I didn't really look into that. I even have a novel here that I've yet to read. But so it's pretty cool universe. I like it because it's sci-fi, but really, it's more fantasy in space, a little bit, and gritty. And anyway, I love it. I've watched Chronicles of Riddick maybe half a dozen times at least. One of my favorite movies. So it follows Riddick, played by Vin Diesel, and he's a criminal, a killer, notorious killer, being transported or hunted by bounty hunters in the movies. But he's got a soft spot for children, and he always ends up playing the hero.
Pedophile.
No, come on.
Man, you actually like that movie? I had a really hard time trying to get through that yesterday. It was good.
Really?
Don't get me wrong. I tell you why that it's so dumb. It's when movies are filmed extremely dark, I don't like it. Like, I like to be able to see the action. And there's a big portion of that first battle that I think would be really cool, where they land on the planet where the lights go out. That's to be expected, right? But during that entire 20-minute fight scene where him and the Imam is the guy's name, the Muslim sort of guy, they're running through the city streets, not chasing one another, but doing their thing. It's so dark, and then just constant flashes of light. It's like if I had epilepsy, I'd probably still be on the ground foaming at the mouth. It was really hard to watch. And then I got 2 hours into it, because it's like 2 hours and 15 minutes, like an hour and 55 minutes into it. My wife looks over, she's like, "Is this done yet?" I'm like, "When is this finished?"
Wow.
But I like it. I like Riddick, man. It was good. It was just that the way it was filmed was painful to watch.
Well,
too dark. I like a lighter show.
He's got dark vision, so they play on that.
Heavily. He's always ripping his goggles off.
Yeah.
I think that's how he activates his superpowers. And really, you just can't pull them off and put them on their head. He's got to reach over his head in some cool way and torque them off like he's wearing a toque or something like that.
So, yeah, I mean, you look at that, and there's some information about the world. And if you look on Wikipedia and places like that, you can get a bit more information on certain planets, but it's not to the point where it's over. There's a lot of lore. Like with Star Wars, there's a lot of lore, right? There's just enough for you to make it your own in a way, I think. And when I look at that personally, I think you need less than you think you do when you're doing an adaptation. You only need to create the material that you need. And I mean, let's take Star Wars, for instance. You don't need to flesh out all the planets in the universe. You just need to, flesh out the ones that you're going to be playing in, that the characters are going to be in. Same thing with the vehicles. You don't need to stat out all the vehicles, just the one that you use. That there's this notion that people are supposed to create everything before they can play a game in that setting. And I don't think it's needed at all. You just need to make what you need. If I were to do Star Wars 2, do you need to make all the races to begin with? I don't think so. There's just hundreds of them. Instead, just make that part of character creation and use the making races section of the Savage Worlds book, where, I mean, we did it when we played Last Parsec. Gary made his own alien race, and it's...
Don't do it, mister. Don't you dare disparage my sweet alien.
Well, my point is that it can be part of character creation as well. You just need to determine what the positive racial ability bonus is going to be. And usually just a +2 is good, because it's the same as humans. Basically, humans get the free edge to compensate instead. So, yeah, my first point is you need less than you think you do. just create what you need as you go along, and that way the task is not intimidating to you. Like you don't feel like you have to create 200 pages of content just to be able to start your campaign, right?
Mm-hmm. And then when you do cool stuff like when you Savage Star Wars and just rename it like War Stores or something like that, You got all of that extra. Sorry, excuse me. You got all of that extra stuff for splat books, right, Lamoureux? You make the racist splat books. You make the planet splat books. Hey, that's how you make the cash money. That's how you make the big dollars, I think.
Yeah, that's how you milk it. Yeah, and the next thing I would say is that I think about is it going to be a one shot or a campaign? And depending on the answer to that, it's going to be different, right? Because with a one shot, you want pre-gens for the characters, so you don't even need to determine any kind of character creation section. You're the one creating the characters for them, so you save some time like that. I mean, it does take a little bit of time to create pre-gens, but it's not that bad. But if you're going to do a campaign, then you need to think of what is allowed and what isn't allowed. I mean, you would look first at the edges and hindrances, especially the arcane backgrounds. Is there going to be an arcane background? And if I look at Riddick, there's the necromongers that I think would fit with a good arcane background there. I'm not sure how I would call it. Maybe the void, something like that, or the underverse. But other than that, I don't see, at least in the movies, you don't really see anybody with any type of psionics or magic or faith ability powers there. So you can skip that and say, plain and simple, nobody can pick an arcane background. Or maybe you want to do a campaign with necromongers and everybody gets to pick that arcane background. So yeah, you'll have to comb through some of the things for the character creation, but also you need to decide what type of campaign you're gonna run. What is it going to be about? Where is it taking place? Who's the villain? And then once you have an idea of that, then you can just start working on these things that you create, not the whole universe. You just create what you need for your campaign.
So what do you think that guy
and stuff like that?
What do you think that guy had? The boss man, whatever his name was, he had that weird ability where he could like pull people's souls out. Like, what would you put that under as far as arcane backgrounds go? Or is even a power?
Well, that one, yeah, I think it would be a power.
Some kind of soul drain or something.
Yeah, he was just unique. I mean, he was the only guy that really had any weird powers besides the elemental woman. She but she comes from the race of elementals. Mm. And really, I didn't see her do anything cool other than just sort of vanish a little bit, like like a misty step kind of a deal for D&D or.
Well, you got like the ethereal racial ability that you can. It's just a racial ability for sure. Yeah, so there's things like that. But after that, what's going to help with creating? So I want the Riddick campaign or one shot to feel like you're part of the universe, and there's some even easier ways than I do to do it. And I think Carl's going to talk about that next session, because when he does one shots, I mean, you play the real characters from the movie and you face the real villains from the movies, and you go to places that are iconic in the movies. I tend to get away from that a little bit because, well, I think it works well with some franchise, but like Star Wars, but with others, like if I were to pick Riddick, I mean, everybody would want to play Riddick, right? Yeah. Who's the other characters? You got the Imam and you got Jack. Other than that, you don't really have maybe Toombs, the Merc, but you don't really have anybody that's just as cool as him. So I wouldn't want the players to play that, because it would be lame for some people ending up with some crappy character that nobody cares about. So
I could see a campaign of this, or even a one shot where everybody plays a merc crew, where you're going around getting bounties and stuff. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I was going with this, is that, because you could play criminals, but then how are you going to work the group unity in there? If everybody's a criminal, how are you going to keep them together without just forcing them to be together? Because they just want to get away, and probably just splitting up is easier to get away than sticking together. So I like the merc bounty hunter.
What game, Eric, is it? Where is it? Beasts and Barbarians, where every time you show up at town, you end up broke. That's like a trope or something like that. It's Beasts and Barbarians, isn't it? And that's pretty much how you sort of glue everybody together, because every time you go back to town, one of the setting rules or something like that is you party hard and spend all your money. So
Carousing.
I
don't really see Riddick carousing, but I see what you mean there.
Yeah, the bounty hunter guys would do something like that, right? To show up and just blow all their money on stupid things.
Yeah. So they would need to stick together, because they would have to, find another bounty and stuff like that. So I had ideas already to begin with, but I decided to go on one of my favorite sites to do this, and we've talked about it on the show before. It's called TV Tropes. So I went on there and looked at the tropes for Riddick, and then I'm just going to go through them. Some of them I didn't write all of them down, and then think about how I would implement that into the campaign. Does it need mechanics, or it's just a theme, something like that? So one of the things is human aliens. So you got no rubber forehead aliens in Riddick. Everybody looks humanoid, and even human, even the elemental, played by Judi Dench, she looks human, right? Riddick's a Furian, and he looks human too. So everybody, even the necromongers, they look human. So there's no gloop in this game. Nobody looks like a pile of slime, or
sorry, gloop.
Yeah, well,
like
that's how you know. Yeah, that's how you know Riddick is a welfare setting. They didn't have enough money to splurge for those CGI effects. That's the problem. It's what's weird too. So he got his Furian eyeballs. Furian's obviously a planet that was destroyed by the Necro Scrode guys, but his eyeballs were an effect of him being put into a prison or something like that, and he got a thing done to them while he was there, so he could perform in the dark, kind of a deal, and that's his edge. He escaped from said planet
for some menthols, I think. Isn't that what he said?
Right.
I like how it's alien and they have menthols. It's a sci-fi setting.
Cost him a couple pack of cigarettes. He's got some cyber eyes.
You know what he said? I thought that's what he said.
No, he said you have to do some pretty nasty things to some people. I think that's what he says.
Gotcha.
I'm like, I don't think there were menthols in there, but could be
cyber eyes for smokes. It's it's just, I find it weird that there was no alien races, that everybody was human, even though they were from all these different spread out planets across the galaxies. And
they were colonies. It's the humans that colonized the space, basically.
Oh, so this is last parsec then. Well, that's where you throw Riddick right in there.
Yeah, you could. Then another trope, they call it the Alcatraz. So in all the movies, and even the video game, especially Escape from Butcher Bay, it revolves around prisons that Riddick escapes from. Now, if you're a bounty hunter, I guess you could end up in a prison too, right? Or trying to find someone in a prison. So that should be part of the adventures that you run. And for adventure ideas, I mean, you could take any kind of dungeon, really, even from D&D games, and just reskin them and make them bit more sci-fi. And I mean, even if you look at some of the planets, the technology levels aren't quite there too. So you could easily have a kind of medieval tech level planet there, and could use that. You'd save a lot of time like that way.
That's another idea for a gaming group, is that they're on a prison planet and they're like a group, a gang, and they have to escape, maybe that's the campaign, and they have to deal with other prison groups and stuff like that, because the one prison planet crematorium they had, it seemed like there was just all out in the open. There's just like, do whatever you want to, guys.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me a lot of, you got to escape from New York or escape from LA. But if you want something plug and play, you look at the Iron Gate campaign for Last Parsec. It's basically that. People end up on a prison planet and they have to escape from it. So Gary just talked about Last Parsec and made me realize that, you could definitely run Iron Gate in the Riddick universe.
It's like Necessary Evil, where everybody's a prisoner, kind of.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I didn't get was on that on the prison planet crematorium there. So at they show up with Riddick and they negotiate a price for him. They negotiate the price based on his value and what he's done and stuff like that. And so they go from 700 to 775. It takes a day or whatever. And then during that day, while Riddick is in the prison, they open the gates and let all these like weird looking dogs and stuff out to go eat the prisoners. But right before that, the very scene before that, they're like, we get paid X amount of money from the corporations to hold these guys here. Like, that's how they make their money on this prison planet. So why are you feeding your prisoners to the freaking dogs, man?
Yeah.
Dogs gotta eat, man.
Yeah, there's another part too that doesn't make sense, where it's supposed to be minus 200 degrees during the night, but you see them running out there in the night and they're not freezing to death. So I don't get that part either, but it's movie magic, movie logic, right?
Yeah.
The other one, we just talked about it, anti-hero. So Riddick, yes, that's the definition of him. But to use bounty hunters for a campaign instead, because they don't have to be paladin-like. They can just be about the money and things like that. But you could make it that if the villains, if the necromongers are the villains, you could make it that it's personal with the bounty hunters, because the necromongers destroyed their home world, or some of their family members are now been initiated into the necromonger way, and just like Jack in Chronicles of Riddick, right? She ends up being one of them. So that's a way to get the players and their characters hooked. Then you got casual interstellar travel. Basically, that's just traveling at the speed of plot. And that's how you deal with this. You don't even need mechanics. It's basically they just shoot some kind of substance, toxin or whatever, in their bloodstream, and then they can sleep through years and years of travel, to the point where at some point Riddick comes out of it and he's got a full beard, so it's been a long time, but it's just speed of plot there. You don't really need mechanics for this. One of the big points is the death worlds. So in every movie there's a planet, and the planet is the main villain. That's basically what it is. The planet is trying to kill you, so it turns into a survival type of game. The first one, there's at night some kind of monsters come out, so you have to hide. In Chronicles of Riddick, it's the planet Crematoria that we just talked about. It's 700 degrees when the sun rises in the morning, and there's that scene where they have to run away from the sunrise, basically, or it's instant combustion when you get hit by the sun rays. So that to me is a dramatic task. You failed, poop, too bad. You just evaporate Yeah.
Right. You turn to
Yeah.
like flakes. You turn to cornflakes like that one
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very cool thing for you could game. You can make a game thing. Is like you said, a random death world generator. That's pretty
Yeah.
badass, man.
I would create one. What do you guys have any ideas of a type of campaign planet? I was thinking maybe one where at a certain lunar cycle in the day, there's some spores that get ejected into the atmosphere, and maybe people turn into psychopath killers, and
nice.
everybody get the bloodthirsty and berserker.
I think you should
That's
you
badass.
should sue the 100 for copyright, Eric.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And that happens in that they go to that one planet. They're all like, "Oh, look at this cool new planet! It looks like Disneyland with flowers and beautiful bright colors everywhere." And then on a certain lunar cycle, well, actually, when they show up, nobody's there because they're all in hiding from this. But I think it is some kind of pollen or spores or bugs or something like that come.
Yeah, and there's even the movie The Happening, the Night Shyamalan movie that's kind of like that. It's the plants that are fighting people, but
The old original Star Trek, they had an episode where the spores made Spock, kind of lose his inhibitions and stuff, and things like that.
Nice. Do you have another idea, like a really death world, a really difficult to survive in planet?
What were those tribbles from Star Trek that just keep reproducing so much?
Yeah.
So it's sort of the same thing, right? They reproduce so much that they basically ravage the planet in a day. And if you're out while they're reproducing, you become food. So you need to split. You try something like that. I got another question. This interstellar travel, man. I was remembering that Riddick was basically in a sleep state for 30 days. Now, when you go into a thing like that, you have to put on diapers. Like, how do we deal with that part of the situation? You just wake up with a beard covered in poo?
I'm sure the rest of your system, your body slows down too, Gary, right?
Yeah.
You got suction cups on certain parts of your body.
Maybe.
Now you're talking.
With tubes.
Probably your digestive system slows down to where, nothing else is going on.
Maybe that goop is the stuff keeping you alive and stuff. You don't have to pee or poop.
Wow.
Then you got the genre shift for this. What that means is that if you look at Pitch Black, it's almost like a horror movie, really. It's really grim and dark, and it's about surviving. They're being hunted, and the only person that can protect them is Riddick. And then you go to Chronicles of Riddick, where it's basically a fantasy movie in space. It's more, it doesn't have the same horror feel. So that's one reason why I don't think I would add any setting rules that make it grittier, like Gritty Damage or anything like that, because it depends on what kind of genre you want to run your campaign in. You could definitely run it ultra horror like Pitch Black, or you can run it more freeform, heroic fantasy like Chronicles of Riddick. So again, no mechanics really needed so far. Except maybe the character creation, making your own races, which being human aliens, there probably wouldn't be much of it. Then you got kinetic weapons. Everybody's using like bullets and stuff. We're in the future in space, but nobody's using laser or plasma, any kind of weapons. The only ones using different weapons are the necromongers, and they use this kind of gravity weapons where it pushes people around. So I would just maybe use that for the necromongers, and use maybe the havoc power to push people around and things like that, or just make it part of the description. If you hit someone with 26 points of damage with your gravity weapon, you can make him do the knockback for 1d6 and then in a random direction and hit something, and then you get more damage. I think the knockback rules are in Superpowers Companion, I believe. So
Yeah, that's interesting. The main character Riddick uses knives. I mean, in a sci-fi setting, it's pretty cool. I mean, that's
even
like
just makes him
a teacup. You kill
Yes,
someone with a teacup. And that's a good example of the can't say it.
improvisational.
No,
go.
fighter, where you can use any kind of improvised weapons and be deadly with it. That's the perfect example of it, right there.
Yeah, that was a fantastic scene. He's like, "I'm going to kill you with this teacup," and the guy looks around, and everybody's like, "Yeah, right." And then he takes him out with the teacup, and then he's like, "Wait," and then he bends down and he picks up like that key that you would have to open up those cooked hams, and he sets it down where he had the teacup. He's like, "Okay, who wants to die by like canned ham key?" You're just like, "Oh wow." That's pretty funny.
So that might be a problem, though. I mean, playing that, people would have to, if you want to play according to the tropes of the setting, how do you keep players from wanting a lot of, big guns and things like that? It's basically just buy in, right? Is there another way you could see doing that?
Instead of using big guns.
Yeah.
Well, it's even when they were chasing him in the beginning scene, they didn't shoot at him with bullets. Well, I guess they were trying to capture him, so they could have just gunned him down and stuff like that. But I guess there really wasn't any kind of bullets. I guess you just sort of, instead of putting bullets in, just take them all out. Like you said, they didn't even really shoot him with bullets to begin with, right? They were using those weird grav pulse guns that just sort of launched people around. So, maybe take ranged weapons out of the setting altogether, and just because everybody just sort of had spears and stuff. Even the end guy tried to kill him with that giant spear that he ripped out of the statue and stuff like that.
Maybe that's part. Yeah, maybe that's part of that Necromunda way is, like personal combat like that. They have to do it hand to hand or something like that.
Code of honor.
Yeah.
Well, they did have the keep what you kill rule, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
Maybe as part of their tropes or whatever, they prefer hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of necromongers, we were talking about the arcane background. I looked at, the scenes, especially in, they're basically just in the Chronicles of Riddick. In Riddick, it's a bit different. They're still there, but you don't see as much. And there's only the Grand Marshal that has really powers. There's also these guys, when Gary was talking about it, when they invade the planet and then they're looking for survivors, and they've got these guys, they're more like husks. They're not really living anymore, and they have those giant goggles on them, and they're hooked up to a cable where someone looks at a monitor and they can see what that creature is seeing, and what they can see is basically heat signatures, and that's how they find people. They're called lensers. So this could be just a piece of technology with the thermographic vision, but you could also use the power detect arcana, but instead you change it to living. So they'd be detect living, and you could power your lenser and walk around with it and find people that are hiding in back alleys and things like that. And then, of course, you got the speed power. The Grand Marshal can move really fast using the power of the Underverse. Boost straight as well, because he's really strong. Deflection, because he gets away from punches and stuff from Riddick, because he can anticipate them. So that's the trapping of the deflection there. And of course, you'd have to look at the whole list too and see what you would add for your campaign. But I'm just going off of what I saw in the movie, but I forgot the part where they ripped the soul out, and this could be just, I don't know, maybe a smite power. And the trapping is that if you kill someone with your smite, then that's just a trapping of it. You pull away their soul. because it's really only effective against extras, right? It doesn't really work against Riddick. He tries it against him and it doesn't work. So probably got spent a penny and soaked the damage. And
he spent a penny.
Yeah. But that poor extra guy, and when they're all talking to them and telling them they're going to join their rank, that guy didn't have a penny to spend, so he's got this soul ripped out.
You know, you played a lot of Savage Worlds when you watch this, and you're like, okay, he spent a penny there, and he re-rolled it, and he aced it numerous times.
The guy that got his soul ripped out looked familiar. He's been in some stuff before. Me and my wife have been watching Yellowstone. I don't know if you guys have watched that. That's that new Kevin Costner show where he's a rancher in Oklahoma, but he's got a son that he's teaching to take over the ranch. And in that one scene when they're on crematoria, where those guards come down and they have the dogs and they let the dogs go. I was looking at it and I had to rewind it because the guy that lets the dogs go is actually the rancher kid from, I was like, and that's the only thing that he does in the entire show is just come down with the dogs, let the dogs go. And he's wearing a helmet and full guard uniform. And I looked at his face and I'm like, hey, look at this, Shawty, my wife. Rewound it. And it's that guy. I'm like, I guess he's been acting for some time now. Cause this was, when did Chronicles come out?
2011,
12 years.
Yeah,
something
2004.
like
Yeah, almost
a long time ago.
Who
so
let the
here's a
dogs
question
out?
for you. Yeah,
That guy did.
That guy.
He did.
He turned out to be a rancher on Earth. Would you, because there was only one guy that had arcane background, which was that one weird guy. So that would be like a boss trait. Wouldn't you just, would you not just give it just to him? You know what I mean? Or,
I think I would.
because he had it, you're saying that other people could technically get it. The whole premise with him was that he went to some place that they are calling the Underverse, and he came back changed, right? So I'm sure other people. So maybe I guess that would explain how you could.
Maybe in your campaign, the group ends up going to the Underverse, and they come back, and one of them decides to take the arcane background edge, and then they have those powers too. So, could be, but like you said, it's only one guy that has all these powers. The rest of them don't really have any powers. Right. They probably just don't show up as living because those lensers can't see them. They can just see people that actually have body heat. So, and then one that's, again, doesn't need any mechanics for it is numbered planets. All the planets except for Helium Prime, they all have numbers after them. That's how you name them. So that's another way to make it feel more like Riddick. And of course, Riddick isn't the only franchise where people use numbers for planets. I think Aliens does that too. So, but it's one way. And then, I would go through the Sci-Fi Companion and to use as a bestiary, basically, or other bestiaries and reskin them. Gary was talking about those hounds that they release in the prison. You can just take a dire wolf or a lion and you add some armor because their skin looks like a dragon skin, basically, right? So you give them a little bit of armor and that's it. You've got that beasties there, or you can take any nasties in your bestiary, put them on a planet and dump the players on that planet and make them crash there and survive trying to fight, I don't know, some dragons, but you name them differently or whatever, there's so much you can do with that. The setting rules, like I said, I looked at them and there isn't really any that I would say that is a must for a Riddick campaign. There's more skill points, of course, because of the technology level. People should start with 15 skill points instead of 12, if you ask me, anyway. But other than that, nothing. I mean, you could make a case for gritty damage, but depends. Are you running more like survival horror in the movie Pitch Black, or are you running more low fantasy, like in Chronicles of Riddick, where gritty damage doesn't really apply? And then, I think that's all I would need personally to to play in Riddick. Straight out of the box, you can do it. But then I'll move to props and I'm sure Carl will talk about that more because he's the king of props. But one easy way to immerse your player into a setting is to use the props. And Savage Worlds already uses a bunch of props, dice, cards, bennies. So, you could find a nice deck of cards, a nice sci-fi deck of cards. For bennies, I don't know what I would use. For conviction points, if I were to use conviction in my Riddick, I would buy a bunch of tin cups, I think. I would give people tin cups.
That's awesome.
Can you think of anything for a Benny that would be good for Riddick?
There are companies that make like coins, like campaign coins. I'm not sure, but maybe they make sci-fi setting ones,
Yeah.
Maybe something like that to give they might not use them in Riddick because it didn't seem like they use actual hard currency, but maybe something like that can just, at the table, we could use them, something like that.
Maybe eyeballs, prop eyeballs,
marbles.
Yeah.
Or even bullet shell casings, because there are a lot of bullets in this game.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't think of anything else besides that. But it's a way to do it. I remember like 3 years ago, we were at Con on the Cob, and our buddy Matt Stark ran a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game. And I don't think he did anything with the setting rules or anything like that. He just created pre-gens with the Superpowers Companion. And then he had one of those individual pizza slices boxes that he got, I think, on eBay or something like that. He bought a bunch of them. And in that box, he put our dice. He gave us a dice. It was a green turtle dice that he gave us. And his idea was to you didn't have time to do it, but he wanted to glue the character sheet on the top flap of the box, the pizza box. So you would open your pizza box and your character sheet would be there. And then the bottom part would be your dice tray. And you could just roll that. And just something simple like that. I mean, he did spend money on it, but I can't imagine it being that expensive. It made me feel like I was part of, that universe. So it's a very cheap trick, easy, doesn't require you much work, and just something like that using props is going to make people feel like they're in that setting. Yeah,
that was cool. Yeah, they had little turtles for the wild die. And I don't think that Matt didn't glue the character sheets to the lid because he didn't have time. I think it was probably because he ate the glue.
That's possible. Very possible. So, yeah. I mean, anything else you guys would add to this that you think would make it feel more like Riddick's? Like Riddick?
So as far as I'm concerned, I would just read the last parsec. It's kind of already done for you, and just you know what I mean. Start scrubbing the names off of things and putting because then you don't have to do any work, even pre-gens and stuff like that. Just take last parsec pre-gens, and then just take them.
There's a bunch of insects people, Yeti people.
Right.
Don't have that.
Well, you can get rid of all of those. You could turn the Yeti guy into a human guy. Just get rid of the Yeti and the cold stuff and whatnot, and just make him a big, strong dude.
Yeah.
Have you guys been watching Snowpiercer at all? Have you seen any of that?
I saw the movie, but not this.
So in spoiler alert, there in the second season, there's a guy he's a giant. He's got to be like 7 feet tall. I should say 6, 8, 7 feet tall. And he's got all of this extra skin put on him and stuff like that because he's been grafted on this other thing to endure the cold and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think you could probably throw something along those lines in too if you wanted to explain how he ended up getting his super strength and stuff like that. He basically, they put him in a freeze chamber and stuff like that and drop the temperature down, and he has to sort of live in minus 70 degrees for as long as he can, and then they pull him out and resuscitate him. So they're training him to be in the cold. But yeah, I would pull Last Parsec. Lensers, you could take Lensers right out of Last Parsec too. There is a slug race. I can't remember what they're called, but you can play this thing called, like, it's almost like being you play a slug that takes over a dead person's body. And so the slug, you actually are the dead person, but you're actually the slug, right? You're symbiotic. And I can't remember what they're called. I almost called them deadites, but they're not. So that could be a Lenser if you just wanted to pull the stats for that right out of the Last Parsec. And then I'm sure you got enough worlds. And as far as travel goes, you don't have to touch on travel. Unless you're going to make something happen in space between planets. But as far as that goes, I would just essentially have just get a map for a spaceship. You've been docked while you're in hypersleep, and make your roll at -4 to come out. See if you can wake up and realize you've been boarded or something along those lines. But other than that, speed of plot. You end up on a planet and you're good to go. Pull something out of the Last Parsec for a monster. Call her done.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, both what you guys said. I mean, Eric, this is a fantastic example on what you can do just with core, but like Gary said, you can get into the Last Parsec and just reskin stuff. That's exactly what Savage Worlds is about. I mean, you could run one shots, a campaign off of what just this episode alone, it's pretty amazing.
The Last Parsec came out with, salvaging. Did you guys read that? The salvaging for Last Parsec, man. You got a butt ton of salvaging adventures that just kick off. And you know what else I realized too when I was reading the core the other day, Eric, is that inside Last Parsec core they have the proto molecule. I don't know if you were aware of that, but there is this one little section where they have this thing that manipulates your chromosomes, and it's like way off in outer space. But within hours, it basically gets inside you and rewrites your genes and stuff like that. But when you read it, it's the proto-molecule from The Expanse. I was like, that's actually kind of cool. It's not really a big part of the theme. So, I mean, you could literally just take that one paragraph and toss it out of the book and never have to deal with it. But yeah, you could do salvaging. Your bounty hunters, salvage bounty hunters or something like that. And cool. Proto-molecule kicks in and all of a sudden you're riddicking some things.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. Let's wrap this up. So, I hope you enjoyed the show. We're going to hear more, the different ways to do it with Carl and Gary, of course. I want to know what the listeners think of this. How would you savage your favorite universe, or which one would you like us to savage more in depth? Maybe if there's something unanimous, if we get a lot of requests, maybe we can have an episode where all three of us get our heads together and brainstorm and come up with something maybe a bit more concrete than my philosophy, because that's basically what it is, right? I don't like to use other settings. Like some people would like The Expanse that Gary said. There's already an Expanse RPG. I would not even grab the RPG book to convert it to Savage Worlds, because to me that's a pastiche. I don't like that. It's a copy of it. In the 90s, I played the Lord of the Rings RPG, and they took a lot of liberties, of course, because they needed to create material for the setting for you to play in that Tolkien never came up with. And that's, to me, that's a pastiche, and that's what another RPG will do to you. I like to go straight to the source and the tropes and the source material instead of trying to convert stuff. I think it's easier. You don't have to comb through everything, and you can just do it simply like I just did, and it works. So do you know what you're gonna do next, guys? You guys have any idea what you want to say?
I have like 3 ideas that I wanted to run by you guys first.
Can I have one of them, Carl? I just need one. Just give me your
one.
crappiest one. It's going to be. I'm excited to see what the listeners send in because I'm pretty sure we're going to be savaging My Little Ponies or some weird ass thing like that. Some kind of weird Japanimation thing.
Well, maybe toss them out there, Carl, and if people can write us and tell us which one they prefer, I can even put a poll up there.
Okay. Same now?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of these, couple of these I've already kind of savaged on my own with convention games. So The World of Mystery Men is the first one on my list.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that movie. Absolutely love that movie.
Yeah, the spleen.
Exactly. And well, I don't want to get into it, but it's kind of simple to do, but there's some stuff that you can do. The World of Bubba Hotep. Where you play an elderly person. Everybody plays an elderly person in an old folks home, and you go from there. Maybe some horror, comedy kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a mystery, supernatural mystery that you have to solve. Yeah.
It's like ETU went in 60 years.
Yeah. Exactly. And the other one is Men in Black. I kind of did that at home years ago with the old deluxe system. So I have some ideas on that too. So
yeah, people let us know what you think. What about rather see?
What about Savage Lost in Space? I think Eric should do that just to annoy me to the end of the world. That would be easy to do because literally, I mean, I could sum that up in one world. Anything that you want to do, I would say it fails for this reason. Roll a dice to see if you succeed. I'm going to go make lunch. Oh, guess what? The lunch machine's broken.
No, you just lean on the critical fails, basically. That's all it is. All right, so let's hear from you folks. Maybe a suggestion for Gary too, because apparently he doesn't know what he wants to do. He probably will forget tomorrow too that he has to come up with one anyway. So
why would I forget on Tuesdays? Don't be silly.
So this is Eric saying, get yourself a big deal.
This is Carl saying, I need a glass of water.
Yeah, you need a throat lozenge. And I got your lozenge right here, fella. You don't even need to take the wrapper off it. This is Gary saying, keep your pants. Well, in Carl's case, I'm going to take my pants off. Keep it fun. Thanks, everyone. We're out of here. See you in a minute, Carl.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Wild Eye Podcast. Send us your questions or comment at thewildeye@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Mew, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify. We're everywhere. Look us up. We're the Wild Eye Podcast. We also have a Patreon. And if you would like to send your donation, you can find us at patreon.com/The Wild Eye. And speaking of Patreon, we would like to thank the following patrons: Rob Towell, Conrad Erasmus Neubert, Corey Judd, Kevin Stanley, Harry Chalmers, Ray Rastia, Dan Brown, Jan Jetmar, Manuel Sands, Mr. Stagg, Sylvia RPG Map, Corey Dersham, Chris Grant, Robert Dorgan, Andy Hall, Brian Kaser, Daryl Captier, Jens Conheim, Sid the Squid, Knuckle Dave Anderson, Tor Bjertness Peterson, and Trevor Hurst. Thank you. We'll see you later.